This video will cover basic page editing. Your website basically has 3 areas of content that you can edit: the header, the page, and the footer. And up in the dashboard we have the corresponding buttons for those areas. So whenever we want to edit one of those areas, we simply click the button for it. And a few things happen here. The button you selected turns blue, so you know what area is in edit mode. Also, the area that's in edit mode is surrounded by a glowing blue outline. The buttons in the menu bar disappear to prevent accidentally clicking and leaving the page when you're in the middle of editing, and the rest of the dashboard becomes active. This area of the dashboard is for page content, so it's only active when one of the content areas is in edit mode. The other buttons are for universal functions that don't deal with page content, so they are always active. And you can switch to editing a different content area by clicking the other buttons. And to turn off edit mode completely, just click the button that's currently active, and it turns it off. Now, as you can see, the page is pre-filled with some sample text, and every time you add a new page, it will have this on it. So let's click to activate the page area. If you notice the dotted blue outlines, you basically have an outer box with 2 inner boxes inside of it. This is called a table, and the boxes inside are table cells. It's sort of a grid system that will help you keep all your page content neatly organized and looking professional. And we'll cover that in the next video. For now, I just want to go over some basic editing tools. If you've ever used a word processor like Microsoft Word or Apple's Pages, some of these tools should look familiar. Now, as you know, the arrow that you move around with your mouse or trackpad is called the cursor. But when you click somewhere, you end up with a blinking line that represents where your next actions will take place. So if I start typing, that's where my letters will go. And that blinking line is called a caret, not to be confused with a carrot. So whenever we say caret, we are referring to that blinking line. Okay, let's go ahead and click and drag our cursor to highlight some text. And we can make it bold, we can italicize it, and underline it. Let's highlight some text over here. We'll put a strike through. And if you notice, the dashboard will always show you what styles are applied wherever you click. So if I click over here, it shows me the styles that have been applied. If I click over here, it shows me the strike through has been applied. And if I click here, I have nothing because no styles have been applied. I can also remove styles by highlighting the text and clicking a currently applied style. And that removes it. So if I come over here and I click underline, it removes the underline. If I click it again, it puts the underline back. I can also click the red X to remove all formatting applied. And the text goes back to normal. Now let's add some color. If we go over here, we have a color picker. And as we click different colors, it changes the text immediately. Let's select some other text and make it a different color. And again, when you click on some text, up here it shows you the current color of your selected text. Now let's look at the color picker. This top section is called the color palette. The first row is the preset colors from your template designer. Let's take a look. The first box in the color palette is your default font color. Now if you change this in here, it's not only going to show up in the color palette, but also will change the font color on your website. Down here, we have your custom font colors. When you change these, it doesn't actually change anything on your website, it just changes the other 4 colors in the top row of your color palette. These up here. And the reason we have these is so you can maintain a consistent color scheme throughout your website. You don't want your site looking all crazy with 57 different colors throughout your pages. The second row shows you your history, the colors you've selected, and this will store up to 10 colors, which would also give you a third row. And if you have a custom color that you know the hex code for, you can paste it into the text box and click Save to Palette, and it will add it to your palette history. Also, the check mark shows you which color is currently being used on the selected text. Okay, let's select some other text. We can also change the size of the font. Now remember, our default size is set to 24. So if we click on a smaller size, the text gets smaller. If we go bigger, it gets bigger. And you can go all the way up to 108 pixels. That's pretty large, but let's go with a smaller one. And just like the other styles, when we click somewhere on our page, it shows us what size that text is. Over here, it's 36. Over here, it's 42. And if it's just at its default size, the box just says size. And if we want to remove the font sizing and go back to the default, we just click on the currently applied size and it removes the sizing. We can also change the font style. We'll go up here and select a different font. It applies immediately. And if we want to remove the font styling and go back to the default, we click Arial twice, once to select it and once to deactivate it. Now the fonts we have in this list are called web-safe fonts. That's because every computer has these fonts installed, so they will show up on every browser. But it's very limited, so we've included the ability to add some custom fonts to your site. Let's go back to the template designer. At the bottom, we have some custom fonts that we can install. What this does is download that font to your page so that it can be displayed to your visitors even though that font is not installed on their computer. Now the limit is 3 custom fonts, and you really don't want any more than that anyways because too many fonts on a web page will make it look sloppy. So let's go ahead and install a couple. Now we save changes, which applies it to our website, and then we click Show Changes to see the changes. Oh, wait a minute, we have a warning. Changes to your page were not saved. Do you want to leave page without saving? Are you sure you want to reload this page? Remember, clicking Show Changes reloads our page. But if we reload our page, we lose all the work we did because we never saved it. This is a safety feature we installed so you don't accidentally leave a page or reload it without saving your changes. And some browsers offer you the option to prevent this page from creating additional dialogues. Make sure you never ever click this option. Otherwise, you're disabling the safety feature. So if you spent half an hour making changes and left the page without saving, you will have lost all your work. So never check that box while you're in the dashboard. Also, don't rely on this feature because some browsers may block it anyway. So always save your changes. In fact, you should be saving your changes periodically as you edit your page. Try to make it a habit so you don't lose your work. Okay, so we're going to click Don't Reload. And then we're just going to close this window. Now let's go ahead and save the changes to our page. Up here we click Save, and we get a confirmation that it was saved. So now we can go ahead and reload our page. And we can do that with the button on our browser that looks like this. Okay, let's click and put the page back in edit mode. Let's select some text. And now when we go to our font list, we see our 2 new custom fonts that we added at the bottom. Let's click to see what they look like. Now the purpose of different fonts is for specific places. You don't want your font to just randomly change in the middle of a paragraph like this, so let's take it off. But we can jazz up a page by applying some unique fonts to page headers, and that helps to make it stand out. And we can do it throughout the page if you have section titles also. So let's go ahead and just copy this and paste it down here. Let's add a title to this section. Call it My First Topic. We can call this one My Second Topic. So let's highlight this. We'll make it bold, increase the size a little bit, and change the font. And we'll do the same thing down here. So if I have 3 or 4 different topics, I can separate them nicely with unique titles. Okay, a couple more things. You can change the text alignment by clicking these up here. You can set it to left, center, right, or justify. By default, it's set to justify, which simply means that the text is made to line up neatly on both sides of the page. Now if I click Align Left, it lines up on the left, but not on the right. If I click Align Right, it lines up on the right, but not the left. If I center it, it lines up in the middle. And if I want to remove the alignment, I just click on whatever is currently set. And it goes back to the default, which is justified. We have it set to justify by default because that's the standard, whether you're looking at a book, a magazine, a newspaper, or whatever. And it just looks clean and organized. And if you notice, the page title is not affected. And that's because the alignment only applies to that table cell. And since the title is in a different cell, it has its own alignment. And we can change that too. Now there may be times when you want to have sections of your page where text or other objects are centered and other text is justified. So you would just create new table cells for those different sections, and we'll cover that in the next video. And lastly, we can do bullet or number lists. Let's go ahead and move down a line. I'm going to click the bullets button up here. And you see that my first bullet point is added. So let's make a list. We'll type blue. Then when we hit return, the next bullet is placed. Let's type red, purple, yellow. And that's it for my list. Now I want to type a normal paragraph, but when I hit return, I get another bullet point. That's okay, all I have to do is click the bullet button to turn it off. And now I can type a regular paragraph. And again, if I click somewhere in the bullet point list, it's highlighted in the dashboard. I can even turn it off for this one item. Or switch to numbers. But that looks sloppy. Let's go ahead and highlight all the bullets. And switch to numbers. Now we have a numbered list. Or we can just turn it off. So that's how to make a nice clean list with bullets or numbers. Now I want to quickly touch on the HTML and CSS code button. This is basically for advanced users. This will show you the background code of your page. And it does have a search and replace feature. And if you click Edit CSS, you can add your own custom CSS code. Now if you're not familiar with HTML and CSS code, you probably shouldn't mess around with these. Also, if you ever click one of the tools in the dashboard and for some reason the dialog window doesn't show and all you see is the dark overlay in the background, there is a black close button in the upper right corner so you can get back to your page. Also, your website is designed to auto-stretch and fill the browser window. So if I resize my browser window, we see that the text adjusts. Now this is great on a computer, but on a mobile device you actually have a set width for the browser window. And that's what these two lines up here are for. If you want to see exactly what your page will look like on a mobile device, you simply resize your browser to those two lines. And that's what the content on your site will look like on a mobile device. Oh yeah, and if you make a mistake anywhere on your page, you can just use the undo button. And this will step you backwards. And if you go too far, you can use the redo button to step forward. And that's it for basic page editing.